You look at 2008, 2009, what happened there, and Spokane was pretty much riding the line.
And I bought property back then, and after I bought it, they went down in value, but the rents didn't go down.
How you can live rent-free.
You're never debt-free, so why are you trying so hard to get somewhere that's you're never going to get?
Hey, here's where we're at now. Here's where we want to get to, and let's build a path to get there.
This is where I go hard.
Yeah. So we'll have plenty of stuff for first-time home buyers as well as the first-time investors. You're here with Andrew Waltner, the Spokane Mortgage Man. I also invest in real estate here in Spokane. Currently own 10 units, manage those on my own. But really what I enjoy doing most is educating our first-time home buyers, our first-time investors, so that way they can make a sound decision on the first time around and do it right the first time. Avoid the thousands of dollars in costs, financial headache, whatever that may be, quality of life, you can name it. I'm joined here today with Pat Kostecka. He is our co-host, and I'm going to let him say a little bit about himself as well.
Hi, and I'm Pat Kostecka. I'm a real estate specialist in Spokane. I also am an investor and a retired school teacher, and I've been doing this for a long time, 35 years of investing in Spokane and 34 years of school teaching and coaching, and I really like to help a lot of people try to do what I do and learn along the way, because there's always something else to learn.
All right, Pat. Well, you've definitely got enough years in the business to be able to see all types of circumstances. So definitely a great advocate to have on your team. I would take you on my team any day of the week. With that being said, let's start to just get into a little bit of this episode. Let's ask some questions. I think questions are going to be the best way to kind of just let people know where we're going with this. A little bit about who we are, because you're going to be seeing us here through a number of episodes. Probably spend over an hour if you watch it all the way through. We've got a lot of goodies, so you definitely want to stay tuned through that. But let's just bust it open. Let's get right into it. Pat, first and foremost, I want to know, you're going to have to think way back on this one, but why'd you get into real estate?
I just like the fact that it's tangible. It's something you can touch, you can see, you can kind of not let a stock market rule you, and you sit back and let it do what it does. I don't trust myself with the stock market in the sense that, I don't know, it just seems like it goes up and down in every which way, and I don't want to be part of that. But I like people too, and I like the idea that these long-term investments can turn into kind of exponential growth with not only them as units, but also my personal income with them.
Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head for what I was going to say is when it comes to real estate, there's just so many ways to earn, right? I mean, I love it because I've always said there's 4 ways to earn in real estate. Number one, if you naturally just look at the market, the housing market, and you look at maybe what your parents, your grandparents bought their house for, and now look at it, 20, 30, 40 years today, how much has that grown?
Yeah.
It's probably 10x most of the time,
it's ridiculous,
at least. And so number one, appreciation, that's just naturally by owning it. Live your life, live in a house you want to live in, and naturally have this growing investment that's also providing you quality of life.
Right.
So number one, it naturally appreciates. Number two is loan pay down, if per se, whether I'm paying it down or whether the tenants, if I'm renting it per se, if I'm getting rental income from that property, my loan balance goes down. So my house naturally, the value just goes up over time.
And that's the cool part when you get into it. What's really cool is that the hardest part is just getting it, acquiring it. That's what our job is. The rest of it's easy because people are just paying it for you.
Yeah, it's an investment. You don't necessarily have to, manage, keep tabs on it. Ooh, did I sell before this, different thing happened? If it's stocks or, a company goes bankrupt, you just don't have to worry about all those outside factors. But to get back to the 4 big things, number one, appreciation. Number 2, loan pay down. My loan's going down as my property is naturally appreciating. This is all mine now, all of that equity in there. And then number 3, once again, if I'm renting a property or even renting out a room in a house, I might receive some income, some cash flow from that. That's helping my monthly budget. Number 3, cash flow. And number 4, when you own real estate, especially as you get beyond just your own house, there can be a lot of great tax deductions that come into play. That can save you thousands, especially if you're self-employed or W-2'd. I mean, there's a lot that can go into
Yep,
there.
absolutely.
And I'm also a W-2, just for the record, and I still get great tax deductions.
Yeah.
You don't even have to be self-employed.
Yep, I know a lot of people that make a lot of money and do not own real estate, and they pay a lot of money to the government that they could
Absolutely.
A, be investing, and B, make even more money off the money they would have given away.
Oh yeah, you can pair these all together.
Yeah.
You know, you have these 4 different ways, and the more you pair them all together, the bigger that benefit's going to be. It's something that no stock, no, commodity, nothing can necessarily provide me all these different benefits in my life, from quality of life to, financial stability as well.
Yeah,
So,
and Spokane is really stable. It's not other places in the United States where it goes up and down. People want to live here and they want to rent here. And I've done this for 35 years. I've been through every up and down you could imagine nationally and was totally unaffected by it the entire time.
that was one thing I noticed as well when I looked into Spokane a lot, was it seemed to be sheltered when I was looking at the historical data. You look at 2008, 2009, what happened there, and Spokane was pretty much riding the line for the most part, maybe a little variance, but nothing that was sharp ups and downs.
Well, I will tell you, I mean, I bought property back then, and after I bought it, they went down in value, but the rents didn't go down. I mean, the bottom line, kind of like with a stock, you're only going to lose if you sell, right? So you just kind of hang in there and do what you got to do. But again, the rents were steady Eddie.
I think we drove that one home as far as why real estate for both you and for me. Just a lot of different benefits that it can provide well beyond other investments. That's why we like it. Pat, how did you get started?
Yeah, so my parents were real estate agents, but kind of inactive. And so as a kid, they owned like 4 or 5 rentals, and we would go there and work on them. And there was a place called Higgins and Henderson Real Estate. We used to go there after church and look for yummies in the refrigerator. So it's just kind of on my mind a little bit.
You had exposure from a very young age.
Yeah, but again, they weren't, all I remember is my mom coming home sometimes. She goes, "Hey, Dad, I bought a house." So I don't think they really served other people that much, but they used it kind of as a means to buy some stuff. So I don't know, it was just kind of made an impression on me, and I just thought someday maybe, and then from there, it just kind of took off.
So Pat, you had those surrounding influences around you that kind of gave you the itch as far as for real estate going forward. It's kind of nice to share that we do have a little different stories, in that I didn't necessarily have people around me who were buying houses come home and say, "I bought a house," right? It was just that my parents owned their home. I knew people that owned their home, so I knew it was just part of that American dream. Now, when I was in college, though, I was taking different investments classes, and all those classes were on stocks, bonds, commodities, different things that we would do all these crazy calculations just to get an educated guess and hopefully make a decision.
Right.
We talked about the stock market a little bit already. Now, at that same point in time, I had someone close to me who I saw as a mentor, and they asked me this question that really struck a bone with me. And it was, what is your largest expense? I'm a college student at the time. Mom and dad aren't necessarily paying the rent anymore. I've got a job. And so I immediately said, rent. I just started paying rent. It was coincidental timing. And then he looked at me and he said, well, what if you could live rent-free? What would that mean for you? My brain's immediately running 100 miles an hour, thinking of all these different things. I said, that would be huge. He said, why don't you go look and figure out how to do that? Start with your expenses. Your income will come naturally. You're going to school, you're going to college, your income will build. Hone in on your expenses, and your largest one is real estate related. Go seek out real estate. He, later on, I found he had some pretty deep ties into real estate as well. So it was just a great start that nudged me that way. So I immediately started just soaking up all the real estate content I could. Content just like this, where you get a couple folks that you can learn from who are already doing it, and took off from there. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
When I was 22, I found a way to buy a property that, instead of a single family home, which you can do this with single family home.
Right.
We'll talk about the strategy more. Single family home, rent out the rooms. Well, I bought a duplex with 2 units, rented out one side. It paid for the entire housing expense, and I was living rent free.
That's
at
awesome.
22. So that was how I got started into real estate, from getting the first itch to closing on my first.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Absolutely. Moving on to the next question. So with getting started, and as we're sharing how we got there, what was the most helpful thing for you when you got started?
Well, you had mentioned that you started talking to people, et cetera. Well, that's exactly what I did. So there was a guy who was probably about 6 years older than me, and we just got talking, and he started telling me a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But the main thing he said to me, back before they even had computers at your desk, no cell phones, no nothing, but we did have newspapers. And he said, just start reading the newspapers and get familiar. And I did. And so I would read, I actually make some phone calls, went out and saw some properties, and I really didn't have the money to buy it, nor did I have a loan officer. That part was dumb. I should have started with a loan officer. But I spent 2 years just getting educated. And from that point, that made all the difference in the world. I saved my money, got educated, and then finally did find a loan officer and pulled the trigger and was able to buy my first duplex at the age of 26, later than you. But you know, it doesn't matter when you get started, just get started.
That is the biggest piece I tell people all the time is education. And it's so much education all around us now. Like you said, it's not the newspaper anymore. It's your phones, it's, you know, it's YouTube, it's different content, webinars, podcasts, AI. I mean, there's just so much right at your fingertips. Now, education is always a great place to start, and that should be why you're here with that as well. Now, it also sounded like what I heard, and I also tell people this, is get started. Just start moving. Even if you don't have all the pieces of the puzzle together, start soaking it up. Start, you know, stepping on the pavement, on the drive, walk up the driveway. Look through houses and get a feel for it, because those reps are invaluable. And there is just so much that you can spend time learning and never make a move. Because you spent so much time just learn. So a lot of it you can learn as you go, I've found. And that's just even a standard person buying their house. I mean, you're going to learn a lot when you own that home. When the furnace goes out, when, you know, your dishwasher stops working, you figure out, should I fix it or replace it? All sorts of things like that. So just get started.
I mentor a lot of people, and it's fun to have the first conversation and then 2 weeks later, 2 months later, maybe even 2 years later, see the difference in the way their brain turns, the knowledge base that they have, the belief in themselves is amazing. And I've seen guys that I started from the very beginning that are doing things that I've never done, from buying properties in other states to, it's like, wow, I don't know if I'm into that one, but I think it's pretty awesome.
There's so many different paths. There's a million different ways you can go, and that's the beauty of it. It's just seeing where everyone goes and being able to help them get there. Right? That's
absolutely.
a lot of why we do what we do. And that kind of leads us into the next question as far as with our journeys from what helped the most. Okay, you got started. Now with that, where are you now in your journey? Can you just tell them a little bit about your snapshot?
Yeah, so I taught school again for 35 years or 34, something like that, and invested now for 35 plus years. And so currently have 25 duplexes, 13 houses, a triplex, and just went under contract with a lake property. It was like the big goal of goals. And I've been looking for 30 years, could never pull the trigger, because every time you look at it, you're like, I could take that money and invest it and buy 2 duplexes and blah, Airbnb and VRBO. And I don't know, just finally this week saw the perfect house and thought, that's the one.
So funny you say that. Not to cut you off, but that has been, you know, the goal. It's always in the back of my mind. I know I've made it when I have this, this, and that, and a lake house is on that list. Well, thank you for sharing. So 35 years is enough time to build quite the portfolio, it sounds like, is what I gathered from that, which is kind of nice, because where I'm at in my journey currently is I own 4 duplexes and 2 single-family homes. I've done a lot of those are large renovation projects too, where I'm taking something that is in a rough, unfinished state or in a very poor situation, bringing it up to, you know, current standards, raising the rents, getting more value out of that. So I feel like I've worn a lot of different hats, from the project manager, contractor, you know, GC, general contractor of my own project, so to speak, and then also managing, you know, those rentals as well, and doing that effectively to make sure you actually make money, because you can lose money based on who you pick and how you go about things if you don't run a property.
You know, on that note, people always ask me why I don't have help to do what I do. Part of it is because I did it for so long because I kind of had to. And I say that in the means I didn't have to, but why would I throw my money away letting somebody else do something that I think is pretty simple? Paying bills, going online, getting a hold of people who want to rent it, meet them, whatever it may be. It's not that time consuming at all, to me at all. And so There's a lot of money thrown away having other people manage your property. However, if you still want to get into it and not have that, it's totally fine. We can help you with those numbers. The down payment makes a big difference in that.
Yes. When it comes to the whole property manager
Yeah.
or self-manage, which we'll talk about this a lot more,
Yeah.
I'll just very quickly say not all property managers are fantastic, and they don't always run it the way that you run it or that you would prefer it to be ran. So I think everybody should manage their first, if you're going to have a rental, you should manage your first rental property so you at least learn the ropes,
Yeah.
and then you can properly manage the property manager.
Amen for that.
So I think that is the nugget for the day as far as if you're going to rent property. Another thing I would say on that topic of property management is as you first start doing it, it is going to be a learning curve.
Yes.
You're going to put the most hours up front in that first year. I would say that's probably where I spent 100 plus hours in the initial first year figuring out how to manage things. But you start to get your systems in place, your policies in place, and it doesn't need to be this crazy detailed thing, but you just go through the rhythm and you find systems, especially like an online landlord-tenant software, huge. Once I got that then I was able to kind of organize a lot better, and now I spend maybe 5 to 10 hours a year managing those.
Yeah.
So kind of like you're saying, when you've done it for so long,
Yeah.
why now would I go and pay what can be some pretty absorbent costs when you already have your systems in place?
Yeah.
And it probably only does take you 5 to 20 hours a year,
Yeah.
depending on how much you have going on.
But we're kind of at a different phase now where I'm starting to let other people start to do things now because, I've been doing it for a long time, and, I definitely am not ready to retire. I don't think I'll ever retire because I'd be bored out of my head. But the biggest one is workies. Like I don't physically touch any of my places anymore. There's no way. I hire it all out.
Yeah, and this is not a message to say avoid property managers by any means.
No.
Property managers, if you really want to take things to the next level, they're almost a necessity to be able to delegate, like you said, and flip your tasks, because your mind can probably go make a lot more money getting more deals and bringing more in, just depending on where you want to take it, what your goals are. Okay, we talked about where we are now. We also gave some bonus content in there as well. With that, what were your original goals? When you set out and said, I'm going to buy real estate, what was the goal that you thought was the finish line?
That's really actually a funny question, because I remember thinking to myself, I wanted to have 10 duplexes, maybe, but 5 really was the goal. I thought 10 was the dream. Wanted to build a house, wanted to have a boat because I love my water skiing, and want to be married and have 5 kids. That all changed really quickly.
Yeah, that was what, probably year 2, 3, 4, 5, early on, and here you are now.
Yeah, and here we are now, and so wanted to have kids. I wanted 5. My wife wanted 3. We both got what we wanted: 5 plus 3 plus 1. So we have 9 of them.
Wow. Yeah. That's wild. I have 2 right now, and some days I feel like my head's going to fall off. So kudos to you. With the original goals, that's pretty similar, right? You have this original goal, and then you get there surprisingly quick, and that's why we set goals, because then you can, of course, move on from there. But with myself, that was pretty much the same thing. I said I want to have 5 properties, and then as life goes on, I'm young enough at that point in time when I started. I said by the time I'm in my mid-50s, these will all be free and clear. That's X amount of millions in paid off properties, and I also would take my monthly rents that I had from them, even today's rents, let's just say.
Yeah.
And if I had no mortgages on all that, that's a comfortable way to live.
Yes.
Right? So same thing. I said it basically 5 properties, and said if I can hit that, that'll be enough to accomplish what I want to do, which is the same thing. Have a wife, have a family, have kids, be able to go do fun things.
Yes.
Right? So if you just set that initial goal and you get started, you go there, and you'll be surprised where you end up. And then you'll be sitting like we are here 5, 7, 35 years down the line and go, wow, look at what my next goal is. And with that, I kind of want to just real short, real sweet, because we can have a lot of next goals. But what is your next goal from here? You clearly don't need to be buying more properties, I would think. And you probably could just go sip a pina colada down in Mexico right now.
Yeah.
So what's your next goal? Why are you doing
Well,
this
the next goal, I do want to continue to buy, just because I want to set the example for my kids. And I don't want to waste money, but I want to use it to play. So there's always this, I'm kind of at that balance phase right now. I want to play, but I don't want to sit and do nothing. I like to keep moving and discovering what's out there. And so I don't know if I'll ever get into commercial or not. I've always had this kind of bug to do that, especially a coffee shop. I don't know why. It just sounds fun. But my kids tell me, Dad, stop.
When you have your bread and butter and like the back of your hand, certain ways to make money in real estate, there's a million different ways. Another reason why we know what drew me in.
Yeah.
You really only have to be good at one of them.
Yeah.
If you want to take it to more of an investment level beyond just buying your first house.
What about you? What's your next step?
Yeah, my next goal is really to be to a point where I can fully, if it came down to it, I could replace my current income from my job, career, doing mortgages. Like you, I don't think I'll ever retire. I just love the game too much. I love being a part of it and being able to help people on what's usually the largest purchase of their lives.
Yeah.
Right? And so I love being that advocate. However, if I could say, well, if I wasn't doing this right now, I wouldn't have to worry about, wow, where's the next paycheck coming from? I would have enough from my real estate investments to supplement that.
Right.
I don't ever want that to be the case, but that's my next goal.
Yeah.
So I've determined to be able to do that. That's probably going to be probably double what I have. So I'd say double what I have currently is my next goal. So get to about 20 doors is the next milestone.
Yeah.
Next link in the chain.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. With these deals and talking about deals, and the properties that we do have, there's enough to at least go through and point out what was your best deal. And I'm asking this simply to show the power of real estate.
Yeah.
And if you can, even one deal, make a great decision, here's what it could potentially do for you.
Yeah.
Not guaranteed, but tell me, what was your best deal?
Well, I'm going to answer this interesting. The best deals that I've had are the ones I didn't hesitate on. Like, and you just got to go. Yeah. And so with that said, the owner contracts have been awesome that I've done, but the one that I did that wasn't an owner contract is I happened to find these duplexes where you couldn't see the inside until you're under contract. And my first thought was, well, what's wrong with them?
Yeah.
And then they just sat there, and I don't know, I mean, like literally for a long time. And then finally I was
really wondering what's wrong with it.
Yeah, I just happened to be in the neighborhood where they were, and I thought, they'll drive by them. And I drove by them, and I thought, dang, those look pretty nice. And so I thought, what the heck? I'm going to write a contract on all three of them and see. And they accepted it. Then I got to go inside, and I'm like, okay, here we go. I walked into those things. They were beautiful. I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
And I'm like, holy smokes. So I got all three of them for $607 each. They appraise out now, which is only not very long ago, about a year ago, but now they're appraising out at $725 each. I mean, just like that. And they're cash flowing. And it's just like, wow, this is awesome.
That was a successful blind date.
Yes.
Sounds like. Blind dating in real estate. So with that, as far as best deals, you said that those were worth how much?
$725.
And you bought them for about how much?
$607 each.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we're talking in multiple properties, even a package deal. So we're talking with 3 properties. But even if you just bought one, there's $125,000.
118.
118.
Yeah.
In that
times
range.
3.
Yeah. Initial equity.
Yeah.
Wow.
Big deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because what's cool is that I did have to put some down, right? So there's a big gap there, but now there's way more equity in there now, that'll be another step. Take that equity out and buy more.
Yeah, because now that you own that real estate, the power of owning real estate, you have those 4 ways that are making you money just by owning it. Now, with that, my best deal, not a package deal. It was not a blind date. It was I would say, a pretty normal transaction. However, when I purchased this property, so this was one of my first properties. It was a duplex. Now, when I bought it for $305,000. And 1 year, right at the 1 year mark, I went and saw how much it was worth because I wanted to see if I could maybe access some of the equity. I had hardly renovated the property much at this point, only one side and paint and floors. And then that ended up appraising at $450,000.
Wow.
Yeah, in that 1 year's time. It was, like you said, it was something that you need to act quick. You need to act very quick on. The listing agent, in my opinion, it was listed very low because the rents as it stood were well more than that purchase price you normally see.
Yeah.
So I knew right away it'd be a great cash flowing deal. I wasn't banking on this equity necessarily coming in right away, but just from acting quick, getting an offer in right away, setting my price, and even setting in something that said I was willing to pay more, but I didn't have to, which was fantastic. And yeah, a year later, I was sitting on, well over $100,000 of equity, similar situation. And I was living rent-free, just like I said before, because my other unit was paying for my full cost of living expenses. So definitely one of the best deals. That's my favorite way for someone who's just getting started out. And we'll talk about that strategy some more. It's how you can live rent-free.
I couldn't imagine paying rent for the heck of it.
I joke, I casually say it's 100% interest rate. Nowadays, right, interest rate's a little higher than we're used to. We were spoiled for quite some time, and inflation's tight, and budgets are tight. So it's very common to see a 7% interest rate that, has been around a little bit now, and people scoff at it, say, what, you can keep paying 100% interest? Oh,
Yeah.
It kind of strikes a bone. I agree. Now, we'll talk about on another episode renting versus buying.
Yeah.
I'm not going to act like renting doesn't have any benefits. There are some there, but when you compare those on a long term, you're going to see just how wildly different those routes
wildly
can be.
different.
So now, Pat, I want to get into something, just have a little fun with it. It's something that I think anyone watching this will benefit from. And it's just common stigmas, things that, quite frankly, keep people out of the game, keep them from moving into their first home or purchasing their first home and so forth. So with that, let's get into some of these myths. One of them, the first one, is people thinking that you need a lot of money to buy real estate. Do you need a lot of money to buy real estate, Pat?
No.
No?
No. I was a teacher.
I love your story on that, which we'll probably talk about some more later on. But yes, what you've done is just working as a teacher salary, and you were able to pull off and take it to the moon from there. So with that, I would echo what Pat says. You do not need a 20% down payment. You do not need even tens of thousands of dollars. Now, there may be a benefit from having more money. If you could put more money towards your purchase than just what they say the bare minimum is, you're going to have a lower loan amount, you're going to have a lower monthly payment, and your monthly budget will probably be a bit more comfortable. Similar situation for myself. Now I will say I did have some, funds to put forward, not, tens of thousands of dollars, but I had some to put forward that then can benefit me in just a little bit way. It made things just a touch cheaper. So you can absolutely have more cash to put forward. It will probably help the monthly budget picture and what your payment ends up being. But quite frankly, and especially as a mortgage lender, there's plenty of programs out there that can cover, as little as nothing. You can get in with as little as nothing, assuming, right, you want to make sure you have decent income and that you're buying your monthly payment you can afford. You don't want to put yourself in a vulnerable position.
Right.
But you can purchase a home with little to no money.
I am right now. I got some people under contract, 2 different couples. You wouldn't believe how little they have to put into this thing. It's unbelievable.
Oh yeah, I've had people where when they get to the closing table, they're receiving money back, earnest money, which we'll talk about as we get into later episodes on the full home buying process. But yeah, they, when they first get their offer accepted, they said, all right, here's our good faith deposit, and they got that back at the end because of that loan program. So myth busted. You do not need 20% down or even really tens of thousands of dollars. The next one, a lot of people think this, and this can be applicable, but not as a blanket statement. You need to be debt-free to buy a house. You need to have no debts. Not the case.
The truth is, probably nobody would buy a house if that was true.
I think Dave Ramsey would argue that one with you pretty hard. Dave Ramsey would take that one. But with that, though, I will say, here's the nuts and bolts. When it comes to debt and purchasing a home, everybody makes a certain amount of income, right? And if you're going to get a loan to help buy your home, so you don't have to save for 30 years just to buy the home, there is so much of a debt capacity, an amount of debt. That's just a fancy word for saying how much monthly payments can we allow you to have, right? And where's your income at? Every person has a debt capacity, has a certain amount of monthly debt. Let's say it's $3,000 per month. Okay, well, maybe you have an auto loan of $400. Now that $3,000 is $2,600 per month, right? And assuming you have no other debt, let's just say, but if you did, we'd just keep reducing it, and we'd get to a number that, let's say is $2,500 per month. Well, there you go. If that's your remaining amount of debt capacity, that is your potential housing payment that you can go purchase. And that's half the process of how we qualify you.
Right.
So you don't need to be debt free if you make, you don't need to make $1 million either. It's just how much do you make? Let's take X amount of percentage of your monthly income, and let's work from there and figure out how much of a monthly payment we can qualify you towards. And then we'll focus on what you're comfortable with and so forth. But you do not need to be debt free. Will it help? Yes. I'll be the first to say that. It does help, but you might not need to. And there's some smart decisions that can be made because the benefits of this real estate, right? If you wait 5 years to get debt free, what did you miss in that amount of time? If you were in this scenario in 2018, you missed a lot, right?
Hey, real quick note. People talk about debt free. That doesn't exist. You still have to pay taxes and insurance. I learned this years ago. You're never debt free. So why are you trying so hard to get somewhere that's you're never going to get? And that part right there, when people shake out of that, they start realizing their potential is greater in real estate ownership if you buy multiple properties or just one, whatever it may be. But you're never debt free, period. You pay taxes. You even pay car tabs.
I was going to say, you're right, car tabs.
You're not debt free ever. Don't ever even go there. And when you get yourself out of that mentality, that's when the sky's the limit.
I couldn't agree anymore. We talk about a lot, or I mentioned there's good debt and there's bad debt.
There you go.
You go take out a $100,000 loan to, let's just say you went to school and you never got a degree and you dropped out. Like, that might not be the best debt. You take out a couple $100,000 loan for an asset that has 4 ways to earn money. That's some pretty good debt, as long as it counteracts how much debt you put on it, right? So definitely some key pieces. I love that. Thank you for chiming in on that. I think that should be shared and sent and gone viral right there. You are never debt-free.
Never.
Ever.
In fact, I never want to be debt-free. That means I'm sitting on the sideline.
That's true. Yeah, you love the game. That's why we're still in it. The next one, getting into, we talked about debts. Along with debts comes credit scores. And the game of credit scores, you love it, you hate it. But there's a lot of ways that credit can be impacted, and maybe you don't have perfect credit. The myth, you need perfect credit to buy real estate. Do you need perfect credit, Pat?
Nope.
You absolutely don't. Now, can perfect credit help you? Once again, yes, it certainly can. However, as a mortgage loan officer, there are a lot of programs that actually don't set your interest rate or price out your loan, so like how much you're going to pay in financing to get that home. There are programs that do not use your credit score to set the pricing of that program. I'm not going to get into all of that right now. But perfect credit does not need to be in place to buy a home. Once again, if you spend 5 to 10 years waiting to get perfect credit, or however long it takes you to pay off whatever debts or blemishes might be there, you might be missing on real estate ownership, even just your own home for 5 to 10 years. Look at the value of real estate 10 years ago to now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a huge missed opportunity. And so all of those things should be weighed out. And the best step to do is just to get with some professionals, some advisors, a loan officer, a real estate advocate, right, an agent that can help decide where you are at right now. Is that the best time? Can we move forward? And what's to gain, right? Getting pre-approved or submitting a mortgage application, I say with myself, costs nothing. And an even bigger benefit, I can do what's called a soft credit pull. That doesn't even ding your credit to where there's no impact to your actual score. But I get the full picture of what does the credit report look like. And at that point in time, that one call, that first step, get that application submitted, even if you're a year out, I can paint such a clear vision of here's where you are right now. Where do you want to get to? Where do we want to be? And if we're there, great. I'll say, you tell me. When do we get started? We're pre-approved. Or it's hey, here's where we're at now. Here's where we want to get to. And let's build a path to get there. And I'll be your advocate. I'll be your accountability buddy. And I'll call you once a month and say, hey, did we do those things we were doing?
Right.
And all of a sudden, you'd be surprised. We get that plan set up just by reaching out. and all of a sudden 6 months later you own a home, or 3 months later, or
definitely.
that next month.
Yep, getting familiar.
Yeah, so getting pre-approved does not cost money, and it does not lock you into a loan that you're forced to take.
Right.
You will have all the information to decide if that's something you want to move forward on. All right, let's move on to the next one. This one, wow, very relevant right now. Now is not a good time in the market to buy. Would you say that's the case, Pat?
This is where I go hard.
Yeah.
Because it's the hesitant people. Like people sit on the sidelines. That's my go time. Because now I can negotiate. I can negotiate with the seller. I can negotiate getting concession money that they pay me at closing to help for my closing costs, buy my interest rate down, whatever it is. Honestly, this is when I get aggressive.
Okay, so Pat, tell me, is now a good time to buy? Because the myth being now is not a good time in the market to buy.
Now is always a good time to buy. It doesn't matter what the market is, 100%. But as far as 2025 goes, absolutely a great time to buy. Why? Because there are a lot of people sitting on the sideline and you can negotiate some great deals.
I agree. When competition is at its lowest, there is opportunity to be had. And there's a bunch of different quotes. I want to say Warren Buffett said something like, when other people are fearful, you be aggressive.
Yep.
Something along those lines. And I would agree with you on that. I mean, once the rates shot up and there was an initial shock factor, in 2022, 2023, and that's kind of propelled us into this area we're at now where there's just a lot of uncertainty or hesitancy on the fence buyers, right? I came in and bought right away. I didn't hesitate. I went, 2022, into 2022, 2023, and that was kind of not even a full year of experiencing, what was then the new normal of the higher rates, and it was just because of that.
Yeah.
Negotiating was great. You could get price reductions. You could get seller concessions, which is them paying towards your closing costs. Now, as a buyer, going back to one of these previous myths, when I'm thinking I need to have a lot of money, now you need even less money, right? Because the seller can pay towards those closing costs, and a great loan officer can set you up with a loan program that meets you where you are with how much savings you have.
Yeah.
So now is, I always say, the best time to plant a tree was 15 years ago, right? The best time to buy real estate, it was probably 15 years ago. We can't do that.
Yeah.
So the second best time is right now.
That's awesome.
Let that tree start growing.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we wait. Let's say we wait because of interest rates. Let's just say that's one reason that we commonly hear, because it is. If we wait to buy real estate a year or 2 or 3 or 4 from now, okay, and great, my interest rate is now 4% instead of 6 or 7. That might sound drastic. However, if the home appreciates, like we talked about early on in this, at just 4%, let's say an average over 75 years, 4% normal appreciation, that same home could easily be $100,000 more, right? 2, 3, 4, 5, however many years from now, however long it takes to get to a 4% rate, who knows, right? And so one little rule of thumb that I like to give, and this is a great tip when you're trying to change and fluctuate purchase price to figure out how much different is my monthly budget going to be. Typically, you can fluctuate a price by $15,000, right in that range, and it'll equate to about $100 difference in monthly payment. Okay, so that's a nice little rule of thumb to share. Now, when you consider if you bought a home for $60,000 more, let's say it was 2 or 3 years later, but at a lower interest rate, that $60,000 difference right there, that's potentially $400 difference, right? A month on your monthly payment. Well, who cares that your interest rate is 2% lower now, because it just ate up all the savings that you would have had by refinancing because you paid a higher price. But now, right here, right now, we can lock in that price and then be able to let time go on, the home appreciates, and then when interest rates do come down, guess what? I'm refinancing a loan that was way down here on that price I locked, not buying up here, refinancing with this higher loan, and now I paid more for it, so even if the rate's lower, I'm just maybe breaking even or hopefully getting close to where my payment would be if I bought right now, versus buy now, and then when I refinance, my payment's going way down here. So that's just a little bit of nuts and bolts to kind of help drive the point home.
Yeah.
Take it for what it's worth.
Yeah.
With that, we're getting down to our last couple. One myth is that if you buy a home, people think you have to be there for a long time. If you buy your home, it's my primary residence, I'm moving in, now I have to live there, and maybe I'm a traveler or I don't want to stay in one place for more than a couple of years or so forth. So, Pat, do you think that if someone buys a home, they have to stay there for quite some time?
Well, they don't. They can stay there for a day if they wanted to, but you have to be there for 2 years if it's your home to avoid capital gains. That part's true.
Yes. So I would say there's different reasons for why you might need to stay at your house, especially as a mortgage lender. You said one day, my bones just kind of jittered a little bit, because if you buy a property as a primary residence, you do have to move in within 60 days. You do have to stay there for a year to avoid committing mortgage fraud. With that being the case, though, after that 1 year mark and you've met your loan agreement, you can then move out, move to the next one, and maybe that property might be worth keeping, might be worth renting.
Agreed.
And here's a nugget, whenever you buy a property as a primary residence, you can get much lower down payments, much lower cash needed if you're able to occupy within 60 days and live there for a year. You will always be able to act, and more opportunities will become available because you're going to need less resources to be able to purchase that property. So if you can buy as a primary residence and it suits your quality, your needs of life where you are right then and there, always try and buy it as a primary residence.
Yeah.
Best financing. You'll save a lot of money.
Definitely.
Okay, now just to finish that myth buster there is, if you buy a home, you do not need to stay there. Most first-time home buyers only stay in their homes for anywhere from 5 to 7 years. Your first home is usually a starter home. You don't have to find that forever home. And it's the best way to get going because you're owning real estate. You're capitalizing on all those ways to earn in real estate. And that starter home, I know dozens and dozens of people where that starter home then allowed them, when their family grew, to propel them into that next property because of that equity that grew. When they said, hey, we're done with this home. Well, now because they lived there, paid their bills, paid their mortgage, their property appreciated, they now have $50,000 to $100,000 of equity that they rolled into their next purchase and then made their larger, maybe more forever type home that much more affordable. Versus if they rented all the way until they said, I'm ready for this forever home.
Yeah.
That forever home is now going to cost you more because you didn't necessarily have, equity growth. If you didn't invest wisely in other investments, where's your nest egg that you're going to put towards that? If you don't have it and you have to go low down payment loan options on the even bigger home, that's going to be a larger setback when you get there.
A little tip here.
Yeah.
If you save, and save because you think you have to, it's kind of like having money in your pocket when you go to the store. You spend a little extra because you have it. So invest it to keep yourself from wasting it.
The out of sight, the out of mind. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm always looking to put things just out of sight, out of mind, money in. It's got a spot it's going.
Yeah.
Right away. Because if it's there, you usually find a good excuse to spend.
Yep.
I agree with you. Pat, getting into this last myth, we kind of already touched on it. And that is, I'm going to wait to buy until I get my forever home. So I want to buy something, I want to be there long term. We talked about that you don't have to stay at a place long term. And I already drove home how if you do wait, you don't buy your starter home, you don't buy real estate, you don't plant that tree now to let it grow over even just 5 years. That forever home is going to be that much more difficult to get to, or it's just going to be more costly on your monthly payment because it's more your financing.
Right.
So myth busted as well. And that concludes our real estate myth busting. We hope you found some value out of that. And we hope that really helped you realize that buying a home is probably closer, within
Way
reach
closer
than you might think. Absolutely. Well, let's wrap up with some final questions here. Pat, let's just quickly tell people, why are we doing this?
We just want to educate people. At the end of the day, as a teacher for me and a coach forever, and somebody who's kind of been in the game for a while, I just like to see people have success. It's fun. It kind of, gets me going a little bit, and because I'm still living it. So for me, I just have a lot of joy. I love my job. I love what I do, and I love people.
That reminds me of something that I was talking with a friend the other day, kind of similar to when you have your favorite movie, and it's a movie that you've seen a million times, and you're like, man, if I could just watch that movie for the first time, like the joy I would get from that. It's kind of that way with helping other people. It's like, I can't go experience my first real estate deal, right?
Yeah.
But when I help a first-time home buyer and they get there and just to be a part of that journey,
Yeah.
that joy they get, the amount of appreciation that typically first-time homebuyers show when you made their largest purchase in life possible, you know, it's like watching that favorite movie for the first time again. So I agree with you, and I think that's why coaching or educating, you know, is for both of us so enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's just we get to be a part of something bigger than ourselves.
Yes.
That was something that a coach once told me back when, you know, be a part of something that's bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
As well as, too, another quote, which if you're watching, this person's going to know who they are, but how do you want to be remembered, right? I can go and accomplish all of my goals and do the things I want to do. Doesn't really mean anyone's going to remember me, right? But if I have an impact on helping things happen for as many people as I can come into contact with, I think I'm going to leave a pretty good legacy.
Yeah.
Something that I can make, you know, the people before, you know, after me.
Right.
And everything I do is, you know, with the back of my mind, am I making my family proud?
Yeah.
Am I being an example and a role model for my daughters?
Right.
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 My children. So, yeah, that's definitely, I think, full picture.
Yeah.
Why we're doing this, and,
Yeah.
and you hit a great spot as well on that. Now, lastly, who are these videos for? Who's going to get the most out of them?
Right. Well, you know, I think we tap into everything. I mean, we were first-time home buyers at one point in time, and we are investors. We still are investing. So pretty much anybody who is looking to acquire real estate in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I think just about anybody can get some nuggets from this. I do feel first-time home buyers, just wanting to buy their first home, especially first-time aspiring investors. If you want to pair your first purchase with an investment type decision, I don't think there's two better people on both the lending side and the agent side to be able to do that.
Yep.
But also, you know, those who are maybe looking to go for their second or third or fourth, fifth property, I think those people are going to find themselves right at home watching these as well.
Yeah.
And like I said, nuggets everywhere for everyone else.
Yep.
So I think you encapsulated that pretty well. All right, Pat, let's wrap this episode up, but let's let them know what is going to be coming. You're definitely going to want to stick around for these topics and these episodes. With that, we're going to cover renting versus buying. We're going to give you a full roadmap, which is preparing and positioning yourself to buy. We're going to be going over all the financing options. I'm going to lay out a buffet for you to be able to soak up as much as you'd like. And then Pat is going to be able
we're going to talk about how do we find that right home, and also submitting those winning offers and negotiating those offers.
Absolutely. We're then going to get into some real estate investing because we both love to do it. So we'll have plenty of stuff for first-time home buyers as well as the first-time investors and those looking for that path, where we cover real estate investing 101, buying your first investment property, owning rentals or flips, and then ultimately we're going to talk about exit strategies. Exit strategies are extremely important in real estate to know, hey, if this doesn't work out, I have this or that. And lastly, all of those things that we talked about investing, they lead and can lead to wealth generation with the right tips and making a smart start.
Yes.
With that being said, if this path, this smart start that we've laid out sounds like the one you've been chasing, you're in the right place. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss those next episodes that we have still to come. You don't want to miss what we have ahead for you. Like this video, follow us on social media, and click the link below to schedule a one-on-one call where we can begin planning your smart start here in Spokane. Your next property is closer than you think.
Yes, it is.
We'll see you on the next video to get you one step closer to your smart start.